Hey guys, hey. Welcome to the channel. Today, I'm gonna read a bunch of words, no actual changes. This is my cat Daphne. Daphne, say hello. She doesn't speak English. So there was a community update released today for Battlefield 6. As usual, really a lot of great words. Isn't that right? She does not care. A lot of great words in the community update. No tangible changes to the game, and it's starting to get a little old. So without further ado, Daphne's going to voice over the entire video, and we'll go over all this stuff. On a serious note, though, I do applaud them for their heightened level of communication. I am just sort of tired of seeing words rather than patch notes. So let's start going over the stuff. If you enjoy the channel, be sure to hit the sub button and hit the like button. Thank you to everyone that does that. And if you've never watched a stream where you watch me lose my mind, well, highly recommended. Link in the description. The community update we'll be going over is entitled Community Update Ongoing Quality of Life Improvements, and if you want to follow along, I will link it in the description. This entire community update is written by Drunksy, or Florian, who is the principal game designer on Battlefield 6. The things they're going to be talking about in this community update are, of course, very important: hit registration, netcode, time to kill, soldier visibility, and audio clarity. Throughout this entire post, Drunksy heavily emphasizes that all of these systems are extremely tightly knit, and the fact that they want to continue to analyze data and feedback in order to make sure the game evolves correctly. He says in this paragraph, because these systems overlap, changes must be validated carefully to ensure they improve consistency without introducing new issues. This process takes iteration and large-scale testing, which is why Battlefield Labs plays such an important role. The first big section he elaborates on has to do with hit registration and netcode. I will leave timestamps in the description because these are really lengthy sections, which I do appreciate, but I can't help but feel we have heard a lot of this stuff before. Obviously, hit registration and netcode is one of the top issues mentioned by players in Battlefield 6, and Drunksy goes on to say, Extreme Measures Season 2 Phase 1 introduced the first round of networking changes aimed at improving combat reliability. Bullet data is now handled more efficiently, and additional stability updates are planned for our next major update. Drunksy then goes on to emphasize that a lot of the netcode/hitreg stuff is heavily influenced by perception, quote, especially when some of our weapons have a particularly fast time to kill, combined with limited visibility. But technical issues have also contributed, and they have addressed several of these issues already. Later on in the post, he mentions that the recent update with Season 2 optimized bullet-related data and how it is being transmitted between client and server, and then he explains how all of this stuff is synchronized, how latency is taken into account, and how everyone's client and server isn't always going to be completely synced, so they're basically working on making sure it is more synchronized than it is right now. Drunksy says, at launch, this system could drift outside of safe bounds under unstable network conditions or heavy system load, contributing to desynchronization. The goal is to ensure that what you see on screen more closely matches what the server sees, even when the performance of the server fluctuates. In addition to those changes, they say that they will also take a look into refining the responsiveness and clarity of both incoming and outgoing damage indicators. This is when you shoot an enemy player and you receive a hit marker on your screen, or when you get shot and you receive a damage indicator telling you what direction you took damage from. Drunksy says, when you take damage or land shots, feedback should be immediate and readable across UI, audio, and visual effects. Improvements in this area will continue alongside our networking efforts. We've also corrected cases where the soldier health bar updated a few frames after the actual damage occurred, and where incoming damage animations lacked clarity, which could have compressed multiple hits into what looked like a single hit. I'm not sure about you guys' experience, but I've certainly experienced this with the health bar, and he gets into time to kill / time to death in the next paragraph, but that certainly ties into what he's talking about here. One of the most interesting paragraphs in this entire write-up is the next paragraph in this netcode section, and Drunksy goes on to say, quote, we are examining how the server validates damage during close encounters. In multiplayer shooters, the server decides whether damage should count, since players are never experiencing the exact same timeline due to latency. In some cases, if the server determines that a player was already eliminated, it may invalidate incoming damage to prevent unintended trade eliminations. This behavior exists to preserve fairness, but it comes with some trade-offs, particularly in fast, close quarters fights where a shot may feel like it should have landed. We are reviewing how the server-side damage rejections behave to ensure the balance between fairness and responsiveness. The TLDR of this is, sometimes you're playing Battlefield 6 and you literally know a shot should have killed somebody, but on the server side of things, your enemy has already killed you, which means your shots do no damage anymore. Tightening up everything to do with the netcode and especially the underlying systems that he has described here will make Battlefield 6 feel completely different for the better. Everything's going to feel more responsive, more predictable, and just more how it should. The last paragraph of this netcode section is also quite interesting. Drunksy goes over how sometimes when you're playing this game, an enemy will kill you when the player model of the enemy isn't even looking at you. I'm sure a lot of you have experienced this exact thing. I experience this all the time, and basically, they're going to try to fix it. The next section of this community update has to do with a hot topic, which is time to kill, gunplay, and time to death. My opinion regarding the time to kill remains the same. I think the time to kill is too fast in close quarters, especially when the gunplay is so simplistic and so easy. The fastest possible time to kill in Battlefield 6 with a full auto weapon is 150 milliseconds, and Battlefield used to be a game where a weapon having 200 millisecond time to kill was the fastest killing weapon in the game and like a big deal. You guys remember the Type 2A from Battlefield 5 and how many people complained about that weapon? The Type 2A had 200 millisecond time to kill, and in Battlefield 6, there are like, I don't know, fucking 10 Type 2As? The first paragraph of this section essentially just states that the first phase of Season 2 delivered improvements to recoil consistency. This had to do with them removing the hidden recoil mechanic that messed with your sensitivity while shooting, and then they go on to say that they have heard concerns that time to death can feel too fast, and that it remains an active topic of discussion within the team. Well, yes, I would certainly hope it remains an active topic of discussion because, you know, they're not just concerns, it's the reality of the situation. You are dying very fucking quickly in Battlefield 6. One of the absolute highlights of this section includes them adding limb multipliers. This has been a long-awaited addition that we still don't have, but at least we can know that we are eventually going to get it. Limb multipliers have been in many previous Battlefield titles, and what they do is it essentially forces you to be better at aiming or have more consistent shot placement in order to get the fastest possible time to kill on your weapon. One cool thing they mention here is if you shoot somebody in the arm, but the bullet goes through the arm and hits someone in the head, it will register that damage as headshot damage. It will not take the arm multiplier damage. That sort of system is in place to prevent inconsistent time to kill instances. On top of the limb multipliers, they also mention they are, quote, validating adjustments to the economy of hollow point and synthetic tip ammunition. For those of you that don't know what these ammo types are, these are the headshot multiplier ammo types. And when they say adjustments to the economy, they are referring to reducing the cost of hollow point and synthetic tip ammunition. This is sort of a half-assed solution in my opinion. What they really should have done is they should have completely rebalanced hollow point and synthetic tip to do something else, and then simply address the base headshot multipliers, increasing them so that everyone feels that headshot damage actually matters. The last thing they mention in this section has to do with weapon recoil, saying that it has been a central focus, and then since launch, recoil compensation could behave unpredictably, and they have made multiple changes, such as the one they mentioned at the beginning of this paragraph where they removed the hidden recoil mechanic messing with your aim. They go on to say that they will continue to evaluate recoil balance across weapon archetypes to determine whether additional tuning adjustments are needed. Okay, so when it comes to the gunplay of this game, I think it's clear as day that the gunplay just doesn't have much nuance to it, and it's not very difficult. I would like to see a global recoil increase for every single weapon in the game, and I would also like to see the controller recoil reduction bonus reduced. Right now, I think it's something like 25% or 20% less recoil vertically. I would like to see that reduced to about 10 to 15%. With the way the gunplay is right now, that's just simply too much. Weapons are already too easy to shoot. And I know some people are going to comment, like, coming at me going, oh, Enders just hates controller players and blah, 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 this, that, and the other. Guys, it's a real problem. When you can tell someone is on controller just based on how many consecutive shots they're hitting at distance, that's a fucking problem. You have to think of it like this. The controller recoil reduction benefit essentially gives you a free recoil control grip just for being on a different input. And I don't want to, like, you know, piss a lot of people off here, but controlling recoil is not very difficult on controller, guys. I know a lot of people try to blow it up like, oh my god, it's so hard. It's really not. Go in the fucking test range, pull your thumb down in the opposite direction that the recoil pattern is showing you. If the pattern is straight up, pull straight down. The next section has to do with soldier visibility, and there is a big emphasis on how art direction is in direct conflict with the visibility of Battlefield 6. What Drunksy's trying to tell you here is, there isn't really much they can do. However, he does detail some pretty key things affecting lighting. Drunksy says, quote, one significant factor involves transitions between interior and exterior areas. He's referring to lighting here. Current exposure calculations consider first-person weapon and arm models, which can exaggerate lighting shifts. We are investigating adjustment that excludes these models from the calculations of the exposure in favor of world lighting. If you don't understand what he meant there, basically, you know how when you're inside a building and then you run outside of a building, it's sort of that washed out, very bright look for a second? The reason why that happens is because your arms and weapon models are apparently triggering some sort of weird lighting shift. So, on top of potential lighting improvements, Drunksy also goes on to mention the game has a soldier visibility filter, and this essentially provides a boost in lighting that increases visibility in certain areas, and how they're going to try to tweak this and test it in Battlefield Labs. At the end of this section, Drunksy again emphasizes that there is a correct balance to hit between immersion and readability, and large visual shifts are unlikely in the short term. So again, he is telling you there isn't much they can do about the visibility. And finally, we come to the end of this lengthy post with the audio section. This section has a ton of insights as to what they're trying to fix with the audio, what the problems are, and some of the inner workings when it comes to prioritization, footsteps, the positioning of audio, performance considerations, and a ton of other things. In my opinion, the fact that the audio in this game is so poor right now really heavily detracts from not only the enjoyability of the game, but the playability of the game. We're talking about a game, again, with sub 200 millisecond time to kill. If there is a key audio cue that the game does not play for you, you're just going to fucking die before you can react. And that is why the footstep audio being so poor in this game is so frustrating. It just feels like there was a key piece of information the game isn't giving you that should have been there, and then you just die. The first thing Drunksy mentions is that audio challenges or problems in Battlefield are rarely caused by a single issue. Footstep clarity, vehicle audibility, and positional accuracy are influenced by memory limits, file size constraints, and performance considerations. How different sounds compete for priority in large-scale engagements, like buildings collapsing while multiple players are firing, the system must decide which sound takes precedence. And that prioritization is very complex, especially when it's at a very large scale. Apparently, at the start of Season 2, they addressed some of these issues by reducing file sizes, optimizing performance, and adjusting audio priorities so that footsteps and key combat cues can stand out more consistently. But I have to emphasize, I do not think it did much, and the audio of this game is really, really rough. Drunksy goes on to say, quote, in the next update, we are introducing more updates to how footsteps behave within the audio mix. Footsteps will interact more dynamically with surrounding sounds and feature improved built-in prioritization. Close enemies will be more audible without relying on heavy volume boosts, and distinctions between enemies, friendlies, and your own movement will be clearer. The readability of obstruction will also be increased. ensuring that sound behaves more consistently when blocking by surfaces and reduces causes where footstep assets fail to play due to performance constraints. Vehicle audio is also receiving targeted adjustments. Multiple jets will contribute less to overall noise floor buildup, and enemy ground vehicles will be prioritized more clearly in the mix, particularly in RedSec. These changes are intended to improve spatial awareness without overwhelming other critical audio cues. Drunksy then goes on to thank us and once again emphasize that large-scale testing and validation has to happen before any of these changes can actually make it into the game. And that's the frustrating part, because I suppose we're just in this situation where we're just going to have to fucking wait. Like, they want to test these changes in Battlefield Labs, they want to make sure these changes are correct, and in order to have that happen, it is very simply just going to take more time than I would like it to take, or probably anyone would like it to take. I think we're in a situation where, yes, these changes might take a couple months to actually all the way get through to the game, but I think in about a month's time or 2 months' time, there are going to be a series of patches where some of these changes finally start to come through, and basically we're going to receive a lot of good stuff in a very short amount of time. As with every single DICE patch, I just hope they make the right decisions when it comes to gameplay changes. I hope the limb multipliers are done in the correct way. I hope they reconsider the way they're going to handle headshot multipliers with reducing the cost of hollow point synthetic tip. They should just do a global headshot multiplier increase and rebalance what those ammo types actually do. Then when it comes to gunplay and TTK, the gunplay is too easy and has too little recoil, and the time to kill is too fast, particularly in close quarters. On top of sniping being overpowered, with the bullet velocities being way too high, and the sweet spot existing. Some of these changes are way easier than others, but I really do think Battlefield 6 still has great bones. They just have to make the correct decisions. And so far, I have to say, they have made the gameplay worse, alright? The movement changes, I don't give a fuck what anyone says. They were not necessary, and it made the gameplay worse. Throughout my years of being a Battlefield player and YouTuber, I've noticed one thing, and it's the alarming fact that a terrifying amount of Battlefield players just simply don't care how the game actually feels to play. An alarming amount of Battlefield players suggest feedback based on how something looks or how immersive it is, and they don't consider the gameplay implications. At this moment in time, I've sort of decided to just really stop trying to fight the war against those types of players and instead give my feedback with essentially not a fucking care in the world as to what anyone says about it. So, that is essentially this post over and done with. Again, a lot of good sounding stuff, a lot of great insights. I am just really waiting for this to turn into a real set of changes we can feel in the gameplay of Battlefield 6. So if you enjoy the content, if you want to stay up to date with Battlefield 6, be sure to hit the sub button, hit the like button, and swing by the streams. All links are in the description. Let me know your thoughts about all this stuff in the comments section, and I will see you guys in the next video.